Number 1. Mowing the lawn. My wife and I have one daughter. I'm a professional writer, so I work from home. My wife is a project manager, so she's gone throughout the day. This is important to know for the dynamics of this story. This story happened on a bright spring day. My wife was at work, and I wanted to get the lawn mowed before I had to work. My daughter hated the noise of the lawnmower, so I put some cartoons on the TV for her while I went out to mow. There are only 2 doors to the house. One is in the front, which is where I began mowing. The other is in the back of the house, from the kitchen. We never use the back door except to take out the garbage, so it's usually kept chain locked. Our living room had a huge picture window in it, so I was able to see inside to check on my daughter while I was pushing the lawnmower. It got hot pretty quickly outside, and we all know that pushing a lawnmower in the hot sun can really take its toll on you. I have a pretty big lawn as well. I was starting to get a little tired and thirsty, and thought I would take a break from mowing. I turned the mower off, and then glanced over at the picture window to check on my daughter. I was shocked to see a huge man standing in the window, looking right at me. He grabbed the drapes and quickly pulled them closed. Terrified for my daughter's safety, I immediately ran towards the house. I assumed whoever the guy was, he probably locked me out of the house. But the front door opened immediately. Although the drapes were closed, the living room was empty. Neither my daughter nor the guy I saw were in there. I assumed they ran out the back door, so I ran into the kitchen. The kitchen door was chained, as usual. Perplexed, I paused for a moment. I couldn't figure this out for the life of me. I then felt something touch my hand, and I jumped. It was my daughter, though, and she was asking me if I was done mowing the lawn. I immediately asked her where the man was who closed the drapes. She was pretty confused. She hadn't seen any man. She had, in fact, just gotten up to go to the bathroom a few minutes ago. Relieved my daughter was okay, I called the police, who searched my house and found nothing. With the back door chain on, the only way the man could have gotten both in and out of the house was through the front door. The police assumed that he had hidden from me and went out the front door while I was in the kitchen. I guess that's possible, but it fails to answer one question. How did he get in when I was in the front yard the entire time? Number 2. The water heater. I'm a really clean person. Although I take a shower every day, occasionally twice a day, I really hate being wet. The absolute only way that I can deal with the unpleasant feeling of being insulted with water is by keeping the water as hot as possible. I live alone in a really old house with a really old water heater, so the hot water doesn't always last as long as I'd like it to. The most disturbing thing that has ever happened to me happened a few years ago, during a week in the winter. I was at work and we got hit by a snowstorm. Before leaving work, I had to shovel over a foot of snow off and from under my car. I was pretty sweaty and gross by that point, and was just dying to take a shower. When I got home, I went to the shower, and my hot water only lasted a few minutes. It was a pain because when I felt it getting cold, I knew I had to wash up as quickly as possible and get out because the water was too cold. It wasn't completely unusual for this to happen sometimes, so I didn't think anything about it. I just had an unlucky day. Unfortunately for me, the unluckiness continued throughout the week. The snow kept coming, and every day when I got home I had to take a shower. My hot water would only last for a couple of minutes. I had to face the fact that the heater was probably getting too old, and I might have to replace it. I am slightly handy myself, so I looked up some website information on water heaters and decided to check out the heater myself on the weekend. I have one of those basements that is more like a cellar. It's only accessible from the outside. The walls are all cinder blocks, and the crawl space for the house is not completely blocked off. After finding all the information I needed, I took my tools and went down into the basement. I really hated the lighting down there, as it was only one light bulb hanging from the ceiling with a chain to turn it on. So I had to walk down the stairs in the dark. I fumbled my way over to the light and pulled the chain to turn it on. I literally screamed the moment the light turned on, as I was looking directly at a man lying in the crawlspace, looking directly at me. Terrified as anyone would have been, I ran back up the stairs as quickly as possible, locked the door from the outside, and headed into the house to call the police. The man had been living in my crawlspace all winter. He had food and blankets and all sorts of things down there. I shudder to think how much longer he would have been down there if my water heater hadn't stopped working. Number 3. The Boogeyman. I'm a bit up there in years, and I don't have any children of my own, so I don't know if this is still something that parents do. If they do, I think they should be shot. My parents were not great parents, and whenever they didn't have the patience to deal with me, they would scare me. They would tell me that if I didn't behave or do my chores or go to bed on time, that the boogeyman would come into my bedroom while I was sleeping and drag me to hell. Of course, when you're that young, it's easy to believe those sorts of things. That just makes it all the more terrifying. But whenever my parents brought up the boogeyman, I knew I couldn't risk it. I quieted down a lot. That was probably my biggest mistake because it just made them more likely to continue it in the future. Around the time I was 10 years old, I began hearing noises coming from my closet at night. The first time it happened, I ran and told my parents that the boogeyman was in my closet. All they did was tell me that I needed to go back to bed, or he'd come out of the closet and drag me to hell. So I went back to bed, although it was a long time before I actually went to sleep. The following night, I heard the noises again. This time, I was determined not to go running to my parents. I really was convinced the boogeyman was in my closet, and I didn't want him to drag me to hell. However, when I heard a loud noise in the closet, as of things falling down, I leapt out of my bed and dashed to my parents. The end result was the same as it was the night before. So I stopped going to tell my parents about the noises, even though I heard them every single night. Each night I couldn't sleep until the noises stopped. Since I wasn't bothering my parents, they just thought I was being well behaved. They allowed me to have a sleepover, and I invited my best friend, Brent. I had told him what had been going on, and he thought it was all in my head, but he was willing to stay up and listen for me. Sure enough, that night, me in my bed and Brent in his sleeping bag, we began hearing noises again. Brent nearly peed himself. We both ran out of the room, and he confirmed to my parents that something was going on. My dad, finally, decided to check it out, and when he came to the room, he heard the noises in the closet too. Only, they weren't really coming from the closet, because when he opened the door, nothing was there. The noises were coming from the closet ceiling, which was right under our attic. For all his faults, my dad was a pretty tough guy who didn't mess around. He was also a hunter, and he went and got his shotgun rather than calling the police. He said it might just be an animal, and he wanted to be sure first. He made Brent and I go and wait with my mom. While we waited downstairs in the living room, we heard one shot go off from the shotgun. This time, even my mom was afraid. After a few moments, we heard noises on the steps of the house from the attic, and then from the second floor. We froze, completely scared of what might be coming down the stairs. First, we saw a man that we had never seen before, and it frightened us. But his hands were up, and my dad was right behind him, with the barrel of the shotgun at his back. He held him while my mom called the cops. It turned out that this man had broken into our attic about a month before, and was living in there because it was winter. The shot we had heard was my dad firing a warning shot. It also blew a hole in the ceiling that he had to fix up later. I often wonder, though, that if my parents had never used this boogeyman nonsense on me, how much sooner would they have caught the guy? Hey y'all, Killer Orange Cat here. If you like this video, please let me know by hitting the like button. If you're not already subscribed to Killer Orange Cat, please use the button below, or the Ichigo icon that will appear at the end of this closing. Let me know what you think by leaving a comment, and feel free to share this video with someone you think might enjoy it. If you have nothing better to do, you can always follow Ichigo and myself on Facebook and Twitter. I think a lot about the stories like this because they're the ones that truly scare me. Above all else, we're supposed to feel safe in our own homes. When your safest places are invaded, what do you have left, really? I didn't get a fiction story out on Wednesday this week, but I still would like to do one perhaps on Saturday to make up for it. If anyone has any ideas as to a creepypasta or other story you might want to hear, let me know in the comments. I've had a few submissions from subscribers that I will probably use in the coming weeks as well. But for now, don't forget to make sure to check in your closet and check under your bed, because you never know where a killer orange cat might be hiding. Good night.